All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to dig into the story of a company that did way more than just connect phone calls. It connected a whole kingdom. This is the epic, century-long story of Nepal Telecom, a journey from a service for just a handful of people to a corporate giant that literally changed the face of a nation. So, to really get what Nepal Telecom is all about, you got to start with how they see themselves. This quote, it's from one of their own annual reports, and it's so telling. They don't think of themselves as just a business. They see what they do as building a legacy. It's a really powerful idea, you know? It frames this whole story as being just as much about building a nation as it is about building a network.
And that legacy, wow, it was built against a massive challenge. I mean, seriously, think about it. How on earth do you build a communications network across the highest mountains in the world and, at the same time, the flat, sprawling plains? This wasn't just some business problem to solve. It was a massive engineering puzzle on a national scale.
To figure that out, we have to go way back. Let's rewind to the very beginning, to what we can call the foundation years. The mission back then was simple, but it was definitely not easy. Connect an entire kingdom, one slow, careful step at a time.
You know, what's fascinating here isn't just what happened, but how incredibly long it all took. Just look at this timeline. We're talking huge gaps, right? Decades between these major steps. From the very first tiny services, it took over 60 years to get to a proper state-owned corporation. That tells you everything about that era. This was a nation-building project, and it moved at a nation-building pace, slow, methodical, and completely controlled by the government.
But then, after all those slow, deliberate decades, everything changed. And the pace didn't just pick up a little bit, it totally exploded. This wasn't evolution anymore. This was a full-blown corporate revolution. And this right here, this was the moment, the single biggest turning point in the company's entire history. In 2004, the old government-run corporation was totally transformed into a public company. Now, think about what that really means. It's a seismic shift, going from a protected state monopoly to a competitive, modern business that has to answer to the market. And this is what happens when you make a shift like that. Remember that last timeline where decades would pass between milestones? Now, just look at this. GSM mobile, the internet, 3G, broadband, bam, bam, bam. Huge technological leaps happening almost every single year. This wasn't just some corporate restructuring. It was a technology explosion that completely rewired how an entire country talks to itself and to the world. So all this rapid change created an absolute giant. Let's fast forward a bit to 2014 and just take a quick snapshot, a look at the numbers to see how big this new Nepal Telecom had really become. Okay, so by 2014, the company had nearly 11 million subscribers. That's not just a big number. It's the answer to that very first question we asked. This is how you connect a nation of mountains and plains. You do it by putting a phone, mostly a mobile phone, into millions and millions of hands, reaching every corner of the country. And this chart really tells the whole story of that massive transformation. Just look at the sheer dominance of mobile. Over 80% of their entire customer base. The old landline, you know, the thing that was the foundation of the company for decades, it's now just a tiny sliver of the pie. The future was crystal clear, and it was in everyone's pockets. And all that growth, it translated into some serious financial muscle. The company wasn't just big in terms of customers, it was a true economic powerhouse. We're talking almost 40 billion rupees in revenue, which led to a massive net profit of over 11.5 billion. This was big, big business. But if you want the one number, the one statistic that shows just how incredibly important this company was to the nation as a whole, this is it. Nearly 6% of the entire government's revenue. Just think about that for a second. This wasn't just another company you could buy stock in. It was a fundamental pillar holding up the whole national economy. But its impact went so far beyond the balance sheet. This was a company with a deep, deep sense of social responsibility. So for this last part, let's look beyond the numbers at its national impact, some of the tough challenges it faced, and where it was planning to go next. I mean, their role really did stretch far beyond just being a telecom company. From sponsoring national sports teams and cleaning up rivers, to something as critical as providing special SIM cards for health workers in the most remote villages. This was a company that was truly woven into the fabric of daily life in Nepal.
But the future was definitely not guaranteed. See, when you're a national pillar, you also face national-sized problems. Everything from energy crises causing blackouts to major delays in building out new infrastructure. Their path forward was pretty clear, though. They had to get leaner, they needed to find a strategic partner to stay competitive, and they had to keep pushing the tech forward with things like 4G and WiMAX.
And all of this brings us to one last big question. For a company that spent a whole century going from a service for royalty to a corporate cornerstone of the entire nation, what's the next frontier? Moving from simply connecting a kingdom to navigating a tough, competitive global market, well, that's the next chapter in the story we'll all be watching.